I came up to you and said, "Oh, I love the Resident Evil games. They're one of my favorite franchises." What would you assume I meant? Because to be honest, it's very hard to put your finger on what someone's enjoyment of Resident Evil revolves around until you've spoken to them more. It's a nuanced topic, isn't it? My point is, Resident Evil is a complex series, and LARPing it is virtually impossible. I know you saw the title and thought this was going to be a very different video, didn't you? Well, no. It's an analysis of why I think that branching the word LARP around a franchise as expansive and detailed and frankly ancient as Resident Evil is a silly thing to do. And so, without further ado, let's elaborate. I'm Squid, and today let's talk about the Resident Evil LARPing problem. Let's actually talk about the term LARP for a moment, just to understand it. LARP is a word that's rocketed into popular slang as a word that basically means the same thing as poser. In the olden days of early metal and alt-rock becoming more popular, circa the early 2000s and late 90s, posers were people who the furiously gatekept and niche world of alt-rockers and heavy metal fans deemed unworthy of their emo bad boy coolness. It's a concept that's remained relevant for many years. The last main thing that really spiked the word's usage was the whole debacle with the Nirvana merch, getting things like pink t-shirts and tie-dye t-shirts and being sold at all these really popular chains for an extravagant price. But when Adi Shankar's flaming hot mess of a DMC anime that, in my opinion, is a heavily butchered, blatantly incorrect retelling of a story that thousands of gamers have loved for countless years across their 5 mainline titles, that was written by a narcissist who thinks himself to be some kind of fictional writing god, was released, we saw the turn of a new way to call somebody a poser. A LARPer. Poser and LARPer are contextually pretty different, but have the same base meaning. A self-proclaimed fan of a franchise or media who has not actually interacted with the relevant source material. Where posers willfully discard their chosen music or games, LARPers have barely interacted with it at its core, only having a half-built idea of what something actually is. And it became apparent from the get-go that this would become a steadfast pop culture phrase, like dank or radical in the times of old. JJK, Gachiakuta, Call of Duty, Silent Hill, of course the DMC fandom, and as we're looking at now, Resident Evil, all had their fan bases aglow with this new hot button topic. Who among you is LARPing the franchise? I think it's rather funny because LARP is already a thing that exists. LARP, or live action roleplay, is a pretty cool thing that people do where they get together with training swords and soft-tipped arrows and fight each other in recreation battles like in real life D&D or like Lord of the Rings and stuff. But alas, the phrase has now taken on a very different meaning. Now, to discuss the idea of LARPing Resident Evil, it's kind of hard. The phrase gets thrown around at every level of fan investment. Some people only know or care about RE 7 and 8, aka the Winters era. Some people believe that the old games are the only things that are relevant. Some people think that the old games are irrelevant, and only RE4 onwards counts. See the problem? Since 1996, Resident Evil has maintained one conclusive storyline, which is frankly impressive, with 11 mainline games, 0 all-numbered games and Code Veronica being the direct mainline titles, God knows how many spin-offs, and a considerable number of non-canon side games. With well over 20 games to consume, multiple in-universe animated movies, several live-action retellings, and a few hard-to-obtain comic runs, Resident Evil is a fucking huge franchise with a lot to consume. Here's my take on it. If you have ever sat down and played any Resident Evil game start to finish, you are a Resident Evil fan. Now you might be thinking, hold up, Squid. But there's so many games, and so many of them are ultra mainstream and only tell a minor part of the story. How can those people who have only played RE4 Remake be a true Resident Evil fan? And look, I'm sure you mean well with your gatekeeping and high standards, as would any sort of fan base. But a game franchise as big as Resident Evil, the cornerstone survival horror game series, shouldn't require a deep-rooted knowledge of all things Umbrella. The games are very popular, and I'm glad they are. It's a privilege to have your franchise be so well respected. And as to your experience with the games, that's not something that should be a barrier to entry into the fandom. Your opinions of the franchise are also yours to hold. Hell, I've got a few that would get me labeled as a LARPer. I mean, here's just a few. Resident Evil tries too hard. It's a fundamentally good game, but it's not Resident Evil. It's more Silent Hill meets Outlast. Revelations is my favorite game. Excellent plot, campy humor, great action, fantastic characters, and a fun experience that has a brilliant atmosphere. I mean, the Queen Zenobia is the pinnacle of just, like, how you can do small-scale survival horror on, like, a really, like, tight budget. That game had barely any budget. I mean, it was also released on the 3DS originally, which is where I played. I liked Resident Evil 6. It was very sloppy and too obsessed with being action-packed, but it's fun. It's a good thing to play when you're just feeling like doing something silly and stupid. Resident Evil 2 Remake is not as good as people say it is. There's a lot of missing plot points and story beats, and the Mr. X in the remake is just a complete joke over OG Mr. X. Just completely different. Not to mention the fact that ammo fucking barely exists in that game. Where are my bullets? I cannot do anything. RE9 is the real return to the series, not RE7. It's the best RE game we've had in years, and I think it's better than I think it's better than most games since RE5. And yes, I think RE5 is good, objectively better than the Ethan Winters games, in my opinion. To some of you, you may have just recoiled in fear at my crippling levels of LARP, and others are probably nodding their heads in agreement. It doesn't matter what your standpoint on my opinions are, because they're my opinions. And I would and have been happy to yap back and forth about them for hours with other fans of the series. The core fact of the matter is that LARP and LARPing allegations are becoming the new, is this YouTuber really doing all their feats and all this cool stuff that they're doing? Or is it all just staged and fake and unreal? With a corny-ass thumbnail and a Raid Shadow Legends sponsor like 5 minutes in. Speaking of which, this video is sponsored by Raid. Just kidding, I am way too small to be respected enough for a Raid collab. I suppose at the core of this video is a desperate plea to all Resident Evil fans. Stop yelling LARPer at people just because they like something. Advise them towards more of the franchise, dazzle them with your achievements in their favorite games, guide them to love and enjoy the games that you enjoy. To quote the Superman meme, hate is lame. Spread love, G. Thank you so much for watching this video. I am very small and new channel, and I plan on streaming on Twitch, so give me a look there if you want to see that. I have a very cool VTuber model that I paid way too much for. I want to make more videos, and I'm looking forward to doing so, so if you like the video, you know what buttons to hit. I'm not going to sit here and bore you with a press the subscribe button and like the video segment. But I will say that if you're on mobile and if you want to spread this video to others, there's a fairly new feature that I've noticed a lot of people don't really know about. People on mobile can use this feature called Hype, which is essentially where you give imaginary points to YouTube, and it essentially will boost my video in the algorithm. Hyped videos are only available to new content creators with small subscriber counts, so if you did enjoy this video, please, 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 please throw your hype points into my video, and I would be honored. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you on the squid side.